come a long way together, haven't we? Across this first season, you've met many of my different selves, or rather, many different aspects of my one self. The autistic one, with learned patterns and constructed code to replace the genetically absent map of human behavioral reflexes. The Igbo one, with tastes and tendencies inherited from ancestors and shaped by colonial ghosts. The ADHD one, who runs towards every spark and struggles to function in low tempo context. The 21st century woman, another performing actress in a saga older than any of us, perhaps 12,000 years old, perhaps. The traumatized one, learning to appreciate and work with the adrenalized and spiky nervous system of CPTSD, depression, and drug dependence. The gifted one, both bright and burnt by the voltage of her own mind. Each episode took one of those aspects of identity and held it up to the light, turned it around, examined its edges, and asked what it means to live in it. But none of those pieces have ever existed on their own. The basic templates I gave you of each identity category transform into particular shapes when combined with the others and embedded into a human self. That, in essence, is intersectionality, perhaps the most important concept in modern sociology, and one few people know of, and I think fewer still understand intuitively. So, for the final time this season, let's talk about it. So, intersectionality is a funny one for people to get their heads around because it's a four-dimensional shape, aka a pattern of motion. Even those who at least know about it will often describe it like a three-dimensional stack of blocks, gender plus race plus class plus neurotype, but that misses the point. It's not addition, it's chemistry. When different elements meet, they don't stay themselves and stack on top of each other. They react, they merge, they compound, so that each thing is different from what it would be if you could hypothetically isolate it from the rest. And moreover, you don't ever really see any individual thing, any individual element, just the composite compound experience they yield in total. So the question is never, what is it like to be a woman? Or what is it like to be autistic? Or what is it like to be Nigerian Irish? It's always, what is it like to be all of those things all at once, right here, right now, in this body, in this century, in this skin and brain and accent? Intersectionality, a term coined by Kimberlé Crenshaw, began as a way to describe how Black women were falling through the cracks of progressive or reparative systems that saw race and gender as separate lanes of oppression, when in fact Blackness entirely transforms one's experience of being a woman, and womanhood makes one an entirely different kind of Black person to a Black man, for instance. But it's become something bigger since. It's a map for intuitively understanding human complexity itself, a way to see identity as akin to chemical interaction and not a list. It tells us that identity is not a stack of labels, but a weave of forces, the pattern of how the world meets you and how you meet it back. So as you look back over this first season of Strange Life, you'll realize that each episode was really one thread in that weave. Each one only makes sense in full when you pull it through the others. Like, think about the crossover between autism and ADHD. From autism, there's the love of structure, the consequence of a brain abandoned by a lack of embedded reflexes to make its own sense from the swirling chaos of the surrounding universe. And then from ADHD, there's the need for novelty, for intensity, for anything that will light one up with the extra large chemical excitement we are genetically wired for. And also the struggle with managing anything less than that. So you put them together and you get this strange mix, a mind and a nervous system that both craves predictability and adventure. A person who builds elaborate and effective systems only to abandon or dismantle them out of restless boredom with having no more problems to solve. Or you get an ADHD pursuit of extra large amounts of physical sensation combined with autistic hypersensitivity, meaning you don't just run around boisterously as expected for an ADHD haver or channel all that intensity into a known sport or exercise. Instead, you just make weird repetitive motions and movements that make no sense to anyone else but feel amazing, like ecstatic relief to you. ADHD isn't autism plus ADHD. It's experiencing internally and displaying externally an autistic kind of ADHD and an ADHD style autism at the same time. Or take womanhood and giftedness. When a man is sharp, people call him brilliant. When a woman is sharp, people call her difficult. And this is because how humans feel about what they witness depends almost entirely on what they were expecting to witness. When people's assumptions about what they're going to get from you based on how you look and how you present are totally contradicted by what they actually get from you, they end up jarred. And because womanhood as a set of behavioral rules has been reinforced for millennia by a cultural norm of correcting, criticizing, and punishing girls and women when they don't conform to expectation, if you jar people while looking like a girl or a woman, you will be corrected, criticized, or punished. So womanhood bends the experience of giftedness. Brilliance becomes something you have to disguise, to soften with warmth, pad with apology, translate into service. You learn to pre-edit your sentences. You learn to pitch ideas like they're questions, to shrink the light just enough so no one calls it glare. And that constant calibration, that social editing takes energy that might otherwise have gone into the work, into the craft, into the study of the subject you would apply your giftedness to. And so your outcomes often feel like less than what a gifted person ought to be capable of, less than what a man might have achieved. And you siphon yet more energy away from the work, the craft, the study, etc., into wondering whether you are indeed gifted at all, or simply a fraud with delusions of grandeur. And so that's how the expectations of womanhood alter the experience of giftedness, brilliance muted by the expectation of easy pleasantness. And of course, this prismatic bending goes both ways. Giftedness also warps the experience of womanhood, changing how much expected femininity actually comes through in your behavior. Because no matter how much you attempt to mask the roaring engine of your mind, conditioned by criticism and correction over the years, you'll never fully hide it. And when you keep exceeding the patterns that people expect, you stop fitting the category that they think they know. So you become the exception, the first woman to do this, the only woman invited to that, the token one in the room that proves that the women outside complaining about barriers are liars. And while your competence grants you entry, it also sets you apart. Even as giftedness blunts some of the penalties of womanhood, the door closes slower, the glass ceiling becomes negotiable when your work cannot be denied, it quietly strips away your belonging to the group woman. You're respected, but no longer relatable, admired, but not seen in certain ways, and certainly not desired fully. You're not like those other girls, said as reassuring compliment and as explanation for why it's those other girls and not you they're taking to the ball. That's intersectionality again, not addition, but transformation. Neither womanhood nor giftedness survives contact with the other unchanged. Each alters the chemical makeup of the other until what remains is something new, a different kind of womanhood and a different kind of giftedness happening simultaneously inside the same person. Then there's the overlap between trauma and heritage. After all, what parents understand parenting to entail depends wholly on what examples and instruction they've received and what pressures they're under as they try to put those into practice. And if, for instance, consecutive generations of parents were instructed and directed to treat their children as means of yielding maximum economic value to their slave or colonial masters, then what they would consider a necessary amount of discipline or reasonable expectations of achievement would be shaped by all of that. And if parenting in this fashion puts a developing child in a perpetual state of fear and helplessness, you get adrenaline shooting through the brain, wreaking havoc, carving a spiky nervous system, and resulting in someone diagnosable with CPTSD. Or take the fact that when you grow up between cultures, sometimes the ways you heal in one feels like shooting yourself in the foot in the other. You learn that to heal as a Western woman will likely mean learning to set boundaries, to say no, But receiving acceptance, praise, or positive validation in an Igbo context, or indeed a Nigerian one, might require performing service, endurance, silence, carrying the weight with stoic grace. Intersectionality is the bridge between the theoretical understanding of psychological and sociological labels and actually recognizing yourself and the world of people around you when you see them. It's the word for how the labels show up in real life, crisscrossing over each other to make different color patterns of experience and behavior from moment to moment. And that's another thing really worth highlighting. Intersectionality isn't just about oppression, it's about perspective. It's about the shape of lived experience in general. It explains why two people can live through the exact same event and come away with entirely different readings and experiences of it, because their coordinates in the world, gender, race, neurotype, class, body, bend the light differently. It's the geometry of experience, the same world refracted through many lenses to unique experience. And understanding that doesn't just build empathy, it builds precision of thinking. It stops you from asking, who is the most oppressed? A question that fundamentally makes no sense and yields no value. And instead asks, what is happening at this intersection of factors? And what does that mean for what I or what we should do in response? And that's what this first season has really been, an exercise in intersectional thinking, not only a memoir, not only a manifesto, but a guided experiment in parsing complexity, an attempt to map how the world feels from inside a body full of intersections, and to give language to what so many of us live without words for. Because in the end, intersectionality isn't just an academic framework, it's a kind of sight. It teaches us that no one is one thing and nothing is ever just itself, and that everything, identity, power, pain, possibility, happens in relation. And so as the season closes, maybe that's the invitation to look at yourself and others, not in pieces or parts, but in patterns, to see how every identity you carry touches every other one, and how those intersections make you, specifically, singularly, strangely, you. Thank you. Have a nice day.